My father left me a beautiful Victorian house when he passed away 2 years ago. I was 19 in college, and my stepmother graciously offered to maintain it while I finished my studies. Last week, I decided to surprise visit and found my stepbrother hosting a party with 30 people in my house. But what I discovered in the basement changed everything. Before I dive into this story that completely turned my life upside down, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you've ever had family members try to take advantage of you, and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of justice served cold. My name is Sarah, I'm 21 years old, and until last week I thought I knew who I could trust in my family. This story begins with the most devastating loss of my life, but ends with the most satisfying revenge I could have ever imagined. When I was 17, my father, Robert, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He fought bravely for 8 months but ultimately lost the battle just 3 weeks before my high school graduation. Dad was my everything, my biggest supporter, my role model, and honestly my best friend. He had remarried when I was 14 to a woman named Linda, who came with her own 16-year-old son, Marcus. I never had a problem with Linda initially. She seemed to make Dad happy, and that was all that mattered to me. Marcus was, well, let's just say he was your typical entitled teenager who expected everything to be handed to him. But I was focused on my studies and preparing for college, so I mostly stayed out of their way. Dad owned a stunning 1890s Victorian house that had been in our family for 3 generations. It was a 3-story masterpiece with original hardwood floors, stained glass windows, and a wraparound porch that overlooked the most beautiful garden you could imagine. The house wasn't just a building, it was our family's legacy, filled with memories of Christmas mornings, birthday parties, and quiet evenings where Dad would tell me stories about my grandmother and great-grandmother who had lived there before us. When Dad got sick, he made sure all his affairs were in order. About 2 months before he passed, he called me into his study one evening and showed me all the important documents. "Sarah," he said, his voice already weakened by chemotherapy, "this house is yours. I've put it in my will that you inherit it when you turn 25, but until then it will be held in trust." He explained that he'd chosen 25 because he wanted me to finish college and maybe even graduate school before taking on the responsibility of maintaining such a large property. Trust would cover all expenses, taxes, utilities, maintenance, insurance, everything. He'd worked hard his entire life and had saved enough to ensure the house would be taken care of until I was ready. "What about Linda and Marcus?" I asked. Dad's expression grew serious. "Linda will receive a generous life insurance payout and the contents of our joint accounts. She'll be financially secure. But this house, this is our family's history, Sarah. Your great-grandmother planted those rose bushes in the garden. Your grandmother learned to cook in that kitchen. This is your inheritance." I promised him I would treasure it always. After Dad's funeral, Linda was understandably grieving. We all were. She asked if she and Marcus could stay in the house for a few more weeks while she figured out her next steps, and of course I agreed. I was heading to college in the fall anyway. That's when Linda approached me with what seemed like a reasonable proposal. "Sarah, honey," she said one evening, "I've been thinking about your father's house. It's going to sit empty while you're away at college, and you know how bad that can be for a property. Break-ins, pipes freezing, all sorts of problems." I nodded, seeing where this was going. "What if I stayed here and maintained it for you? I could keep an eye on things, handle any repair issues, and maintain the garden. Your father would have wanted that. And honestly, this place holds so many memories of our time together. I'm not quite ready to leave yet." It seemed like a perfect solution. Linda would have a place to live while she transitioned to her new life, and I wouldn't have to worry about the house sitting empty. The trust would continue to pay all the expenses, so it wouldn't cost her anything. "That would be wonderful," I told her. "Thank you so much for offering." "Of course, dear. Family takes care of family." So I went off to college, majoring in business administration at a university about 4 hours away. I called Linda every few weeks to check in, and everything seemed fine. She'd update me on small maintenance issues, a loose shutter, some painting that needed to be done, normal things. She sent me photos of the garden in full bloom, which made me happy. During my freshman year, I was so busy with classes and adjusting to college life that I only made it home twice, once for Christmas and once for spring break. Both times, everything looked normal. The house was well maintained, Linda seemed settled, and Marcus was finishing up his senior year of high school. My sophomore year was when I started noticing changes. During my Christmas visit, I noticed that some of my father's things had been moved around. His study, which had always been kept exactly as he left it, looked different. When I asked Linda about it, she explained that she'd had to move a few things to make room for Marcus's computer setup. He needed a quiet place to study for his SATs, she said. I hope you don't mind. We were very careful with your father's things. I did mind, actually, but I didn't want to cause a scene during the holidays. During spring break of my sophomore year, I noticed more changes. My grandmother's china cabinet had been moved from the dining room to the basement. Some of my childhood furniture was gone from my bedroom. Everything's safe, Linda assured me when I asked. I have a storage unit across town. We can move things back whenever you want. Again, it seemed reasonable, but something felt off. The house felt different. Less like my family home and more like Linda's house. The real warning signs started during my junior year. Linda's phone calls became less frequent. When I called her, she often seemed rushed or distracted. She stopped sending me photos of the garden. When I asked about visiting for fall break, she suggested I might be more comfortable staying on campus. There's some major maintenance work happening, she said. Construction noise, workers coming and going. It would be disruptive to your studying. Christmas of my junior year was when everything started to unravel. I came home to find that Linda had completely redecorated the living room. My father's favorite leather armchair was gone, replaced by a modern sectional sofa. The family photos that had lined the mantelpiece were nowhere to be seen. I hope you don't mind, Linda said, noticing my shocked expression. The old furniture was looking so worn, and I thought it was time for a fresh start. The photos are safely stored away. Marcus, now 19 and supposedly taking a gap year before college, barely acknowledged my presence. He spent most of my visit in the basement, which Linda had apparently converted into a game room for him. The basement had always been my father's workshop, filled with his tools and projects. Now it was wall-to-wall gaming equipment. Marcus needed his own space, Linda explained when I stared in shock at the transformation. But Marcus wasn't a teenager anymore, and this wasn't his house. The changes felt like violations, but every time I tried to bring up my concerns, Linda had a reasonable explanation. I told myself that things could be changed back later, that the important thing was that the house was being cared for. Spring break of junior year, I was so overwhelmed with coursework that I didn't make it home at all. Linda said she understood that school should be my priority. We barely spoke during those months. Which brings me to 3 weeks ago, the beginning of my senior year. I had been feeling increasingly homesick and guilty about not staying connected to the house. On a whim, I decided to drive home for a surprise visit. I didn't call ahead. I wanted to surprise Linda and spend a few days in my childhood bedroom. I pulled into the driveway at about 2 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, and immediately something felt wrong. There were 4 cars parked in the driveway and along the street, none of which I recognized. Music was coming from inside the house, and I could see people moving around through the windows. I used my key to let myself in, or tried to. The key didn't work. I tried it several times, but it definitely wasn't working. Someone had changed the locks on my father's house. On MY house. The front door opened from the inside. A girl I'd never seen before, probably around my age, stood there holding a red Solo cup. Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm Sarah. This is my house. I live here." She looked confused and called over her shoulder, "Marcus! There's some girl here who says she lives here." Marcus appeared a moment later, and I barely recognized him. He'd grown a lot. He was taller, more muscular, and had an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Sarah? What are you doing here? What am I doing here? This is my house, Marcus. What are all these people doing here? He rolled his eyes. Relax, it's just a little party. Mom's not home, so I figured it was fine. Where is she? And why don't my keys work? She's at her book club. And we had to change the locks last month because Mom lost her keys. Nothing about this made sense. I pushed past them into what used to be my father's living room. It was filled with college-age kids I didn't recognize, drinking and treating my family home like it was a fraternity house. Everyone needs to leave. Now, I said loudly. Conversation died down as people turned to look at me. Marcus stepped up beside me. Hey everyone, this is my stepsister, Sarah. She's just visiting for the weekend. Visiting? Visiting? I'm not visiting, Marcus. I live here. This is my house. Actually, Marcus said with a smirk, this is my house too now. Has been for over a year. Everyone out. I shouted. People started gathering their things and filing out. Within 10 minutes, the house was empty except for Marcus and me. You had no right to do that, Marcus said. I had every right. This is MY house. Not anymore, it's not. What is that supposed to mean? Marcus walked over to the mantelpiece and picked up a piece of paper, holding it out to me. Mom's been trying to figure out how to tell you, but you never come home anymore. I took the paper with shaking hands. It was a deed. A deed that showed the house had been transferred into Linda's name 6 months ago. I read it 3 times before the words made sense. This is impossible, I whispered. The house is in a trust. It can't be sold or transferred until I'm 25. Yeah, well, apparently there was some kind of loophole. Mom's lawyer figured it out. My legs felt weak. I sat down heavily on the unfamiliar couch. Where is Linda? I managed to ask. She's at her book club, like I said. She'll be back around 6. Marcus, I need you to explain to me what's been happening here. And I need you to tell me the truth. Look, Sarah, you can't just show up here after 3 years and expect everything to be exactly like it was. You're never here. You've basically abandoned this place. I haven't abandoned anything. I'm in college. The house was supposed to wait for me. But it was just sitting here, you know? Mom was doing all the work of maintaining it, dealing with problems. She was basically acting like the owner anyway. What about the trust money? That was supposed to pay for everything. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Well, there were some extra expenses. The trust fund ran out faster than your dad expected. My heart stopped. What do you mean it ran out? I mean, there's no money left. Trust account is empty. Has been for over a year. How could it be empty? Where did the money go? I don't know all the details. Mom handled all that stuff. But there were a lot of expenses, property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance. Big old houses are expensive. I needed to see Linda immediately. I told Marcus I would wait until she got back. Actually, you can't, he said. What do you mean I can't? I mean, this isn't your house anymore. If you want to wait for Mom, you can wait outside. I walked outside and sat on the front porch steps, my mind racing. While I waited, I called my father's lawyer, Thomas Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell? This is Sarah Collins, Robert Collins's daughter. Sarah, how are you, dear? Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you about my father's trust. My stepmother has apparently taken ownership of the house. There was a pause. That's impossible, Sarah. The trust specifically prohibits any transfer until you reach age 25. But I'm holding a deed that says otherwise. Can you email me a photo of this document? I took pictures and sent them. While I waited for his response, I walked around the property. The garden was overgrown and neglected. Several stained glass windows had been replaced with regular glass. Porch was missing spindles and had peeling paint everywhere. My phone rang. Sarah, this deed is fraudulent. The words hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean by fraudulent? I mean, someone forged signatures and created false documents. The trust is still active, the house is still legally yours to inherit, and what your stepmother has done is illegal. They said the trust fund ran out of money. That's also impossible. I've been monitoring the account. It has over $80,000 in it currently. Linda's car pulled into the driveway as I was finishing the call. She got out looking relaxed and happy, but when she saw me sitting on the porch, her face went completely white. Sarah, what a surprise. We need to talk, Linda. She walked up the steps slowly. Of course, honey. Let's go inside. Actually, Marcus told me I'm not allowed inside anymore. Since this is your house now. Linda's face went even paler. Oh, honey, he misunderstood. Of course, you're welcome in your father's house. Is it my father's house, Linda? Because I have a deed here that says it's your house. We went inside and sat in the living room. I placed the deed on the coffee table. Explain this to me, I said. Linda looked at the document like it might bite her. Sarah, I know this must be confusing, but there were some legal complications with the trust. My lawyer said the only way to protect the house was to transfer it into my name temporarily. Temporarily? Yes, of course. Until you turn 25, just like your father wanted. And where is the trust money? Well, there were a lot of unexpected expenses. The roof needed work, the heating system had to be replaced. Linda, I just spoke to Mr. Mitchell. He says there's $80,000 in the trust account and that this deed is fraudulent. Color drained completely from Linda's face. That's not possible. So you're saying my father's lawyer doesn't understand the trust he created? Linda stood up and started pacing. You don't understand how expensive this house is to maintain. You've been off at college while I've been here dealing with every problem, every expense. That's what you offered to do. I thought it would be temporary. But you never came back. You abandoned this place. I'm 21 years old. The trust was set up so I could finish school. Well, I couldn't afford to maintain it anymore on my own. You weren't supposed to be maintaining it on your own. The trust was supposed to pay for everything. Linda stopped pacing and turned to face me with something ugly in her expression. You want to know where the money went? It went to keeping this house livable. It went to Marcus's car when he needed transportation. It went to my medical bills. It went to living expenses because your father didn't leave me as much as I needed. So you stole it. I used it to survive. It wasn't your money to use. I was your father's wife. I had rights. Not to money specifically set aside for the house. I stood up and walked toward the door. Where are you going? To file a police report. Sarah, wait. We can work this out. We're family. No, we're not. We stopped being family the moment you decided to steal from me. I drove straight to the police station and filed a report. Detective Martinez was patient as I explained the situation and provided all the documentation Mr. Mitchell had emailed me. The forged deed is easy to prove, she said. We can verify signatures and dates. The harder part will be tracking down where the trust money went. What happens now? We'll serve Mrs. Collins with notice of the investigation. She won't be allowed to dispose of any property while the investigation is ongoing. The next morning, I returned to the house with my camera to document everything. Marcus answered the door, looking hungover. What do you want? I want to document the condition of the house for my lawyer. Mom said not to let you in. Marcus, the police are investigating. You can either let me in voluntarily or I can come back with a court order. He stepped aside reluctantly. What I saw broke my heart. The house was in terrible condition. The hardwood floors were scratched and stained. The walls had holes and scuff marks. Kitchen cabinets were damaged. But it was the basement that showed me the worst of it. My father's workshop had been completely converted into a gaming lounge with expensive equipment wall to wall. In the corner were boxes of my father's belongings, many opened with contents scattered around. I found my grandmother's china, some pieces broken, family photo albums with pictures missing, my father's tools now rusty and damaged. In one box, I found my great-grandmother's wooden jewelry box. It had contained antique jewelry that my father had specifically mentioned in his will. The box was empty. I took photos of everything, the damaged heirlooms, the scattered belongings, the expensive gaming equipment, clearly purchased with money that should have gone to house maintenance. When I came back upstairs, Marcus was eating cereal. "Where is my great-grandmother's jewelry?" I asked. "What jewelry?" "The antique jewelry that was in the wooden box downstairs." He shrugged. "Maybe Mom moved it somewhere safe." "Marcus, there's at least $10,000 worth of electronics down there." "I needed a computer for school." "You deserve things you pay for yourself." "Whatever. Mom's lawyer says we're going to win this anyway." "You abandoned this house. You can't just disappear for 3 years and then come back and claim ownership." The investigation moved quickly. Mr. Mitchell's audit of the trust account revealed that Linda had been systematically withdrawing money for over 2 years using forged authorization documents. Total stolen was over $60,000. The forensic accountant traced where the money went: Marcus's car, Linda's cosmetic procedures, a vacation to Europe, expensive furniture and electronics, and Marcus's college tuition. Police confirmed the deed was completely fraudulent, forged signatures, fake notarization, and the law firm listed didn't exist. Linda was arrested on charges of fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. Court ordered Linda and Marcus to vacate immediately. On moving day, I was there with Mr. Mitchell and a court observer. Linda barely looked at me, but as she loaded the last of her things, she turned around. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed our family." "I didn't destroy anything, Linda. You did that yourself. Your father would be ashamed of how you've treated us. My father would be furious that you stole money he saved to preserve his family's home." Marcus was more dramatic. "This isn't over. We'll appeal." "With what money?" "The money you stole has to be paid back." I stood on the front porch of my father's house, my house, and for the first time in 3 years I felt like I was truly home. The restoration took 6 months. I recovered about $40,000 through the civil lawsuit, enough to repair the damage and restore the house properly. I hired contractors to refinish the floors, repair the walls, and restore the stained glass windows. I'm finishing my senior year now, driving home every weekend to work on the house. I've hired a property management company for day-to-day maintenance and security. Linda and Marcus moved to another state. I heard Linda is working as a receptionist and Marcus is living with her again. I don't know if he finished college. Honestly, I don't care. The house is beautiful again. I've restored my grandmother's garden, repaired my father's workshop, and filled every room with memories instead of bitterness. Last month, I graduated from college. Mr. Mitchell came to represent my father. "Your father would be so proud," he said. "Not just of your degree, but of how you fought for this house." That evening, I found a letter from Dad I'd never seen, hidden in his study. "My dearest Sarah," it began. "If you're reading this, you've faced some challenge related to the house and been strong enough to overcome it. This house represents our family's love and perseverance. Take care of it, but let it take care of you too." I cried reading that letter, not from sadness, but from gratitude. Today I start my new job in town. I'm living in my family home while building my career just as Dad hoped. I've also started dating David, a local teacher who helped with restoration work. Last week, I received a letter from Linda apologizing for the misunderstanding and asking if we could be a family again. I threw it away without responding. Some bridges should stay burned. I don't hate Linda and Marcus anymore. Hate takes too much energy. But I'll never trust them again. They showed me who they really were when they thought no one was watching. The house is fuller now than it's been in years. I host dinner parties, holiday celebrations, and garden parties. Every room is used and loved. Sometimes I talk to Dad as I work in his study. I tell him about my job, about David, about my plans for the house's future. I like to think he's proud of how I fought for our family's legacy. 3 weeks ago, I found a box of photographs in the basement storage. At the bottom was a picture of 4 generations of women standing on the front porch. On the back, in my great-grandmother's handwriting, "The Collins women, guardians of home and heart." I had that photo framed and hung it in the hallway. It reminds me that I'm part of something bigger than myself, that strong women have protected this house for nearly a century, and that it's now my turn to be its guardian. As I sit on the front porch swing David and I installed, watching the sunset through the stained glass windows, I know I made the right choice fighting for this house. Linda and Marcus thought they were dealing with a naive college student who would be too intimidated to fight back. Instead, they discovered I was my great-grandmother's great-granddaughter, raised by a man who taught me that some things are worth fighting for. Every morning when I wake up in my childhood bedroom, now beautifully restored, I whisper, "I kept my promise, Dad." Because that's what you do for real family. You keep your promises, protect what matters, and make sure love wins over greed every single time. If you enjoyed this story of standing up to family members who try to steal what's rightfully yours, please like and subscribe to True Revenge. Share your experiences in the comments. Have you ever had to fight family for what was yours? Remember, sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. But you're stronger than you know, and truth comes to light when you're brave enough to fight for it. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, never let anyone convince you that you don't deserve what's rightfully yours.